It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear, no fear, no fear here and Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, in the BEA beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com, where you need to go right now. You go there, and towards the top half of the page, you'll see today's archive for today's show. And it's Sam Husseini. Now, he is the founder of WashingtonStakeout.com. I guess he's staking them out, man. You know, he's behind his blind, and then he's telling us what's what. Now, he's going to tell us what's what today about Obama, Netanyahu, and AIPAC. You know, is this professional wrestling or a real fight? You know, I mean, what better way to put it? It's a really big shoe. Well, are we being manipulated? Are we being played? You know, Obama comes out and says one thing, and then, you know, Netanyahu yesterday goes out and, you know, talks to Congress. Heck, I thought it might have been today. I didn't know. I don't care. Am I allowed not to care? Well, it gets to the point that they amp it up. They go, yeah, better care, or something bad's going to happen. We're going to go to red level, and you get your trunk searched at your car at the airport. I mean, just, you know, they hate being ignored. We will not be ignored. Be afeared. Be afeared. Now, Sam is also communications director for the Institute for Public Accuracy, and they do a lot of good work there and hook us up with a lot of the great guests that you get. Even though we may not agree or disagree on everything, what we can do is get a better understanding of what's going on. Now, Sam, you got to help me out, man, and the audience. Now, I know you go to today's archive for this show, and there are videos Sierra already has up of you asking, you know, other, you know, prominent individuals in politics about Israel. What are you asking them?
I'm asking them if they know that Israel has nuclear weapons.
And they say what?
They say all kinds of weird things. Mike Pence is probably my favorite. He's the vice chair of the subcommittee on the Middle East in the House. I ask him, you know, Israel has nuclear weapons. He says he hesitates. He like pauses for 10 seconds, and then he says, "I know that Israel is our most cherished ally." And he goes on about that a little bit, and then I ask him, you know, do you think that it increases or decreases your credibility that you can't say that Israel has nuclear weapons? And he says, the American people love Israel.
Yeah, it increases his electability, I can tell you that. You know, so, well, that's what this is all about, really. I mean, come on, Sam, you've been covering, you're staking out Washington, WashingtonStakeout.com. So I'm going, okay, and you're staking out, tell me, who runs Washington, man?
Right. Well, you know, most of what I do is on the Stakeout webpage is, you know, as these politicians, you know, they go to these Sunday morning talk shows and they get asked the same banal questions, and they give, you know, deceitful or disingenuous answers. What I do is I go with a cameraman in tow, and as they walk out, there's often a stakeout, like CNN will send a camera crew to the ABC studios or whatever. So I go, and they end up asking the same question that the guy I got asked in the studio. I go and I ask, you know, what I hope is a substantial question. Actually engaging in, you know, heaven forbid, you know, journalism that it's of a tenor that actually questions some of the assumptions of the establishment that don't get questioned. And what we've seen on the Israel nuclear question is Richard Nixon and Golda Meir basically came to an accord in 1970 and said, nuclear ambiguity, they called it. Israel will neither confirm nor deny that it has nuclear weapons. The United States stopped all inspections of Israeli nuclear facilities at that point. And ever since then, every president has maintained this fiction. It's just not a credible position to have. So every administration would not acknowledge that Israel has nuclear weapons. People might remember Obama got asked this question at his first news conference by Helen Thomas, who's gotten bumped off, of course. She asked him, do you know of any country in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons? His response, I don't want to speculate. What do you mean you don't want to speculate? He's the President of the United States. You know who does and who doesn't have nuclear weapons. I asked Jimmy Carter this question back in 2008, and he gave a vague answer. But about 6 months later, he finally came out. I don't know if his conscience was eating at him or what. And he said, yeah, Israel has nuclear weapons, and this whole stance is kind of silly, and we should just.
Well, why did they have this stance? I mean, I'm sure it serves their interest somehow. But
I think that they have this stance in part because it highlights the whole hypocrisy. I mean, when I asked John Edwards when he was running for president, but before the sex scandal, this question, I said, do you know that Israel has nuclear weapons? And he starts going on about Iran and saying what a threat Iran is. And the big threat of Iran is that if Iran goes nuclear, then Saudi Arabia will go nuclear, and then Egypt will go nuclear, and then Jordan will go nuclear, without saying a word about Israel, which was the question. But I think that highlights what the problem is. I mean, part of the problem with the Middle East, there are several, but a big one is the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. The United States and Israel won't acknowledge it, and that makes other countries, you see the rise of militarists like Saddam Hussein, for example, in Iraq, or Ahmadinejad in Iran, I think feed off of this cloak and dagger policy by the United States and Israel, and they come to the conclusion that they have to get nuclear weapons too.
If they said no, we don't, like they're going to believe them. I mean, I'm
right.
If you look at the Middle East and you have the insecurities that are going on there, and people, we got to have as big a stick kind of thing, I can see where it's to their advantage to probably not admit that they got them, nor say that they don't. This ambiguity serves their interest. In their mind, I'm sure a lot of people make the argument that makes them safer. So I'm going, yeah, I don't really care. I mean, I'm sure it's of interest to a lot of people. I just don't want to be in a position that I got to go what some country can or cannot use to defend themselves, but that applies to everybody. So we look at Iran and we fret and bother over whether they're going to get the bomb or not, and I'm thinking they can buy them at a discount in volume from the Soviet Union, or former Soviet Union. So I just to think that any one of these don't have them is to be, if not naive, at least dangerous. So I'm wondering, what is our policy against a sovereign country having the country's equivalent of the semi-automatic, battle rifle? I mean, I want to know where we get off saying that someone can't when we do.
I think that is a real question. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty basically said that there are going to be two classes of countries that already have nuclear weapons, like the United States, China, France, Russia/Soviet Union, and Britain, and that they have nuclear weapons, and they promise to get rid of them eventually and to work towards that goal. And everybody else who doesn't have them isn't supposed to get nuclear weapons. 3 countries have opted out of that: Pakistan, India, and Israel. Pakistan and India say, screw you, this is an apartheid system of nuclear haves and have-nots. We're going to take our nukes, and we don't want your Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel won't say either way. And
how did Pakistan get nuclear weapons to begin with? Did we have to help them?
Pakistan got nuclear weapons because India had nuclear weapons.
No, I understand their argument why. I want to know how.
How?
They had, I mean, they're all of a sudden they came up with a nuclear program, poof, they got them? Or did America help them a little bit? Well, we're going to find out. We'll see what Sam knows about that when we come back here on Declare Your Independence in just a little bit here in Phoenix, Arizona at the farm. We'll be right back.